Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something that, well, can genuinely enrich our lives and sharpen our minds. Building a solid reading habit. Might seem like, just another item for the to-do list, but making time for books, it offers some really significant benefits.
It really does. And yet, reading for pleasure seems to be declining, doesn't it?
Yeah, the figures were quite striking. In the U.S., fewer than half of adults read even one book for fun in the past year. That's down noticeably from about a decade ago.
Wow. So why should people listening make the effort?
Well, there's some compelling research.
Hmm.
One long study, over 14 years, actually linked frequent reading to a significantly lower risk of cognitive decline later in life.
That's huge. So it's not just about relaxation or entertainment.
Exactly. It's kind of an investment in your future brain health.
Uh-huh.
So our mission today is really to unpack the science behind forming habits and give you some practical science-backed strategies to make reading a lasting part of your life.
Sounds good. We'll look at habit loops, cognitive psychology, even a bit of neuroscience.
Absolutely. And crucially, how to overcome those common roadblocks that stop us from picking up a book more often.
Okay, let's get into it. Building any habit, reading included, isn't just luck, right? There's a sort of framework involved.
You mean the habit loop?
Exactly. The cue, the routine, and the reward. It applies perfectly to reading.
So the cue could be something like getting into bed.
Yeah, or finishing breakfast. Then the routine is obviously the reading itself.
And the reward, that could be different things for different people, I guess.
For sure. It might be getting lost in a great story, the satisfaction of learning something, or just feeling that connection with the characters.
Right. And the key is to actually design this loop deliberately, not just hope it happens.
Intentionally choosing a trigger.
Like deciding that, say, after dinner, you'll read for 15 or 20 minutes every night.
And then you actually do it. And you make sure there's some kind of payoff, even if it's just, acknowledging you did it, a mental pat on the back.
Yeah. And the science suggests that doing this consistently, cue, routine, reward, basically teaches your brain that reading then is a good thing. It's beneficial.
And it's worth remembering how much of our day is run by habits already. Some studies say, over 40%?
Yeah, around 43%. Things we do almost on autopilot, often tied to where we are or what just happened.
So the goal is to get reading onto that autopilot setting. Anchor it to those cues and rewards.
It sounds much more effective than just relying on willpower, which often fails us.
Oh, absolutely. The research really bears that out. People we think of as having great self-control, often they're just really good at designing routines and environments that make the right behaviors automatic.
So it's less about forcing yourself and more about smart setup.
Exactly. Setting yourself up for success.
Okay, so how do we actually make reading feel more automatic? What does cognitive psychology tell us?
Well, repetition is fundamental, as we touched on. Doing something consistently in the same context gradually makes it need less conscious effort.
Like learning to drive, maybe. At first, you think about every single step.
Right. And then eventually it becomes much smoother, more automatic.
There was that study, wasn't there, where people tracked how automatic a new daily habit felt.
Yes. And it showed it takes time. The average was around 66 days, but it varied hugely. Could be a few weeks, could be many months for some people.
So patience is key.
Definitely. But the good news is missing a day here or there doesn't wreck everything.
Ah, that's reassuring. Just get back on track.
Consistency over the long haul is what matters most.
Okay. And what about the environment? Does where you read matter?
Hugely. That's the principle of context-dependent memory. Habits are basically strong links between cues and responses.
So reading in the same chair at the same time each day strengthens that link.
Precisely. The chair, the time they become triggers, the context itself prompts the behavior. That's why consistency, especially early on, is so important for building that association.
It's like creating a dedicated reading space or time.
Yeah, an anchor for the habit. And you can leverage different types of cues, too, Time, location, maybe what you just did before.
Like reading after your morning coffee.
Or even an emotional state, like reading when you feel relaxed. Finding what works for you.
That makes sense. And speaking of planning, I know if-then plans are often mentioned. Implementation intentions.
Yes, they're incredibly effective. Instead of a vague goal like read more, you specify. If it's 8 p.m., then I will read for 20 minutes.
Or If I'm on my lunch break, then I'll read for 10 minutes after eating.
Exactly. It reduces that need to decide in the moment. You've already made the decision. It makes the action much more likely.
So planning out specific times and places is a really practical step.
Definitely. Embed it into your existing schedule.
Now, what if setting aside even 20 minutes feels like too much at the start?
That's where the small steps or tiny habits idea comes in. It's really powerful. Start super small.
Like just one page? Or 5 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that feels almost ridiculously easy. The goal initially isn't volume, it's consistency, building the routine itself.
Research seems to back this up, right? Like in exercise studies?
Yes, small, manageable steps often lead to better long-term adherence and results than trying to do too much too soon.
So establish the daily habit first, then maybe increase the time later if you want to.
Exactly. You want to get to the point where not doing your little bit of reading feels kind of off, like you missed something.
That's the habit-taking route.
And then there's the reward aspect. From a cognitive view, rewards give positive feedback.
Reinforcing the behavior.
Right. Now, external rewards like buying yourself something can help at the start, but long term, it's the intrinsic rewards that really sustain a habit.
The actual enjoyment of reading, learning something cool, feeling relaxed.
Precisely, that inner satisfaction.
Yeah.
There was a study in 2018 that showed pleasure and intrinsic motivation were huge factors in habit strength.
So choosing books you actually want to read is critical, especially when starting out.
Absolutely. Don't force yourself through a dense classic if you'd rather read a thriller right now. Prioritize enjoyment.
Make the act of reading itself the reward.
That's the ideal, yeah. Feeling smart or moved or just escaping for a bit, those are powerful intrinsic rewards.
Okay, so that's the cognitive side. What's happening inside our heads, neuroscientifically speaking, as this habit forms?
Ah, this is really cool. There's a noticeable shift in brain activity. When you're first consciously trying to build the habit, it's driven by your prefrontal cortex, the planning, decision-making part.
The effortful part.
Right. But as the habit gets stronger through repetition, control gradually shifts to deeper brain areas, particularly the basal ganglia.
Which is more involved in automatic behaviors.
Exactly. It's the brain's habit center. Anne Graybiel at MIT did fascinating work on this.
Oh, the task bracketing idea.
Yes. She found that in well-learned habits, neurons in the striatum part of the basal ganglia fire strongly at the beginning and the end of the routine, but less so during the middle.
Like the brain chunks the whole sequence together. Start, finish. The middle runs automatically.
Pretty much. It makes these ingrained habits really efficient, neurologically speaking. And as she noted, quite hard to break once they're formed.
So that feeling of just automatically reaching for a book at 9 p.m. without thinking, that's the basal ganglia taking over.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah. The conscious effort fades as the habit becomes neurologically embedded.
And dopamine must play a role here too. The reward chemical.
Absolutely central. When you read and feel rewarded, dopamine release strengthens those connections between the cue and the reading behavior.
Making you more likely to do it again.
And eventually, just the cue itself might trigger a bit of dopamine release, creating that feeling of wanting to read, that anticipation.
And finding books intrinsically rewarding likely boosts this dopamine effect even more.
Definitely. It fuels the whole cycle more powerfully.
It's amazing to think that reading literally rewires the brain. All those connections strengthening.
It really is. Neurons that fire together wire together. Regular reading makes those brain networks involved more efficient. It's a physical change.
And emotions play a part too, neurologically.
Sure. Things like oxytocin if you connect with characters, maybe even adrenaline in exciting parts. It all adds layers to the reinforcement. Neuroscience really confirms habit formation isn't just abstract, it's physical brain change.
Okay, wow. So, knowing all this science, let's get really practical. What are some concrete strategies people can use starting today?
Habit stacking is a great one. Leverage a habit you already have.
The James Clear formula. After current habit, I will new habit.
Exactly. Like after I brush my teeth, I will read 1 page. Or after my morning coffee, I'll read for 10 minutes.
Because the existing habit acts as a really solid automatic cue.
Right. You're piggybacking on an established routine. Studies show linking new behaviors to these existing daily triggers works really well.
So listeners could think about their day. Commute, lunch, bedtime routine. Where could reading slot in right after something they already do?
That's the key. Find those natural connection points. Another big one is environmental design.
Shaping your surroundings.
Yeah. Make reading easy and appealing and make distractions harder. Keep books visible, bedside table, coffee table, in your bag.
Reduce the friction. Right. Good lighting, glasses handy.
There was a study with adult literacy learners where just having easy access to interesting books made a huge difference to their reading habits. Choice and accessibility matter.
And on the flip side, reduce temptation from other things.
Exactly. Turn off the TV, put the phone on silent, maybe even in another room during your reading time. Wendy Wood's research highlights how good habit keepers often just avoid the triggers for bad habits.
Out of sight, out of mind, basically.
It helps a lot. Then, setting clear, manageable goals and tracking progress.
We talked about small goals, like read 15 pages daily.
Right. Be specific. And then track it. Mark it on a calendar, use an app, whatever works. Just seeing that progress is a mini reward in itself.
The don't break the chain idea.
That can be motivating for some, yeah. Just seeing that unbroken streak. But again...
Don't beat yourself up if you miss a day.
Exactly. Just get back to it. And looking back at books finished can be really satisfying, too.
What about making it social? Does that help?
It can for some people. Joining a book club, maybe an online challenge, or just telling a friend your goal.
Accountability?
Yeah, and also discussing books can make it more enjoyable, boost that intrinsic reward. Buddy systems often improve habit adherence.
So even just reading the same book as a friend could work.
Sure. Or using sites like Goodreads. The key is making it encouraging, not stressful.
Right. And explicitly rewarding yourself, especially at the beginning.
Can definitely help kickstart things. A small treat, putting $1 in a jar per chapter, something tangible.
But be careful not to undermine the enjoyment of reading itself.
Ideally, yeah. Maybe rewards related to reading a new bookmark, saving up for another book, improving your reading space, and celebrate milestones. Finishing a book, hitting a streak.
Okay. And keeping it fresh seems important too.
Absolutely. Give yourself permission to stop reading a book if you're bored.
Seriously. People feel guilty about that.
Don't. Life's too short. Keep a queue of books you're excited about. Mix it up, fiction, nonfiction, different formats like audiobooks.
Maybe even micro-reading on your phone while waiting?
Yeah. Adaptability is key. Make it convenient, enjoyable, flexible.
Okay, great strategies. But let's face the common problems. The biggest one must be, I just don't have time.
It feels true, but often it's about making time, not finding it. Schedule short slots. Treat them like appointments.
Non-negotiable.
If you can. And look for those hidden moments. The commute, waiting in line, lunch breaks. Swap 5 minutes of scrolling for 5 pages.
Carry a book or use your phone.
Exactly. Make use of those little pockets of time. It adds up. It's about prioritizing it, even in small ways.
What about distractions? Trouble concentrating.
That's huge today. Create that distraction-free zone. Notifications off, phone away, maybe use an e-reader with no internet.
Train your focus gradually. Start short.
Yeah. Pomodoro technique might help read for 25 minutes. Short break. Choose engaging books initially. And just gently bring your focus back when it wanders. Don't get frustrated.
Maybe have a rule. Reading time is just for reading. No multitasking.
Good rule. What about lack of motivation? That initial resistance?
Ugh, yes. Sometimes just picking it up feels hard.
Make it easy. Book ready, open to the page. Use temptation bundling pair reading with something nice, like your favorite tea or sitting in a comfy spot.
Remind yourself why you want to read more.
Definitely. Connect back to your intrinsic goals. Maybe even jot down how you feel after reading more. Relax, smarter.
And starting with something super easy to get going.
Can work wonders just to break that inertia.
Okay, another one. What if you're just not enjoying the book? We touched on this.
Simple. Stop reading it. Seriously. Especially when building the habit, enjoyment is paramount. The more you like it, the stronger the reinforcement.
Explore different genres, authors. Find what clicks for you.
Exactly. Permission granted to ditch boring books. Try an audiobook, maybe?
All right. Last big obstacle. Breaking a streak. Feeling discouraged.
It happens. The key is resilience. Don't let one missed day become 2 or 3.
Never miss twice.
That's a good mantra. Avoid that all or nothing thinking. Reading one paragraph is better than none. Focus on just showing up.
Be kind to yourself.
Yes. Analyze why you missed it, maybe adjust your plan, but don't give up. It's a journey, not a straight line.
Okay. So let's say someone's built the habit, it's sticking. How do they maintain it long term? Keep it going.
One really powerful thing is to solidify your identity as a reader.
Teach yourself that way.
Yeah. Start identifying with it. We tend to act in line with who we believe we are, so embrace it, talk about books, share recommendations, make it part of your self-concept.
That makes sense. It becomes self-reinforcing.
Exactly. Also, be aware that life changes, moving house, new job can disrupt habits.
So you might need to consciously rebuild a habit loop in the new situation.
You might. Find new cues, new times. Be vigilant about bad habits creeping back in and maybe taking over that reading slot. If you feel it slipping, reassess and adjust.
And keep noticing the benefits, not just tracking the pages.
Yes. Pay attention to how reading affects you positively. Better vocabulary, less stress, more empathy. These are real outcomes.
Maybe keep a reading journal for insights.
Great idea. It deepens the connection. And remembering the long-term brain health benefits provides that deeper motivation too.
And ultimately, keep it enjoyable.
Absolutely essential. Follow your interests. Let the habit evolve. Maybe set new challenges, read a certain number of books, explore a new genre, but only if it's fun.
If it feels like a chore, maybe reread a favorite. Or pick up something light.
Exactly. Rekindle the joy. Variety and genuine passion are what sustain it for life.
Okay, so to wrap things up, building a reading habit isn't magic. It's about understanding the science habit loops, cognitive tricks, brain changes, and applying small, consistent actions.
Using practical strategies like habit stacking, tweaking your environment, setting goals, rewarding yourself.
And knowing how to handle those inevitable bumps in the road, lack of time, distractions, motivation dips.
And remembering that habits are just mental shortcuts the brain creates based on what's worked before, what felt good. We can consciously shape those shortcuts.
Making reading an automatic, rewarding part of the day.
That's the goal.
So here's a final thought for you listening. Just imagine. Imagine the knowledge you could gain, the incredible worlds you could explore, the personal growth you could achieve. Just 1 year from now, if you start building that consistent reading habit today, what would that look like? Take that first small step. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.